We're going to start with Ashley here. We're going to quickly spin from my right to left. And again, thanks to everyone for keeping it fairly crisp, if you could.
So we have quite a few questions on the Manatt report. The Manatt review confirmed...
You may have quite a few, but I'm asking you to please be economical. Thank you.
The Manatt review confirmed reporting that the state put more emphasis on hospitals early on in the pandemic than on long-term care facilities. Given that nearly half the deaths have come from nursing homes, do you think that the Department of Health made a mistake in how it prioritized PPE and other resources? The report also noted that the state's paid sick leave did not extend to all nursing home workers. Do you know why that is, and what will you do to address that? The Manatt report doesn't mention the 3 nursing homes your administration administers. Will there be a report on how things were handled at the Paramus and Menlo Veterans Homes, considering they have among the highest death tolls in New Jersey? How feasible are the recommendations to try avoiding a similar catastrophe and an anticipated second wave? To both the governor and commissioner, what new thing did you learn from the report that your administration did not already observe as you were managing this crisis?
One more, please.
Okay. The report said that they did not conduct any in-person visits to nursing homes, but conducted more than 50 video or phone interviews with stakeholders. Did the consultants interview any actual residents or families of residents? Thank you.
Thank you. Judy, you'll need to come in on a fair number of these. How feasible is it? These are very feasible, which is why we want to get at this immediately, including with legislation, which is why I mentioned Senator Vitale and Assemblywoman Huddle's support here means a lot given their respective chairs. We will absolutely do a postmortem on the veterans' homes, period. And what new things did I learn? Listen, some of this we had a decent sense of. For instance, Millie and I think on our very first meeting 6 years ago at this point, maybe even 7, talked about staffing ratios. So I wasn't surprised by that. I love the notion of the single point of contact in the same model as the Office of Emergency Management that Pat oversees at the Rock, where we're headed in a few minutes. And then beyond that, maybe Judy, ask you to weigh in on some of the other questions that Ashley raised here.
I think you asked a question whether we prioritized hospitals over long-term care. We actually prioritized all of our institutions and identified the scarce PPE that we had. And I don't have it in front of me, but I do know that long-term care did get an allocated part when we were having nurses throughout systems wearing garbage bags. I think we're forgetting how the supply chain had contracted. There was no PPE nationally, and we were sourcing as best we could. But long-term care was in the allocation methodology. Nationally, and we were sourcing as best we could. But long-term care was in the allocation methodology.
I don't know. You asked the question, do they conduct in-person visits with residents? I don't know the answer to that. We can come back to you unless you know.
Yeah, I don't believe there were in-person visits. I would have to
we don't know the answer, so we'll come back to you. May I say something else about PPE, which we haven't said in a while? Judy just alluded to. Could everyone please remember 2 things? We don't have enough PPE today, on June 3rd, 2020 in this state. As a nation, we started out in an awful place with a pea shooter at best in terms of PPE, ventilators, other supplies, not just for long-term care, certainly for long-term care and other vulnerable communities, but for hospital systems, for essential workers, for NJ Transit bus riders or train operators. As we sit here today as a nation and as a state, we have come, I don't think per capita any state has put more PPE, sourced it, and put it to work than New Jersey. I'm pretty confident we're #1 in the nation, but we're still not at the level that we need to be. And Judy makes that point, and I think she wants to make another one related.
Yeah, in March, when PPE was the scarcest, long-term care received 66 pieces of PPE, and since the end of March, over 14 million pieces in total. That's gowns and masks and gloves and face shields. 14 million in total.
We have to keep rolling, but you asked one question about staff, and please, Ashwan, I should have introduced Ashwan here.
I think you didn't mention the paid sick leave issue. Do you know why some nursing home workers were not getting paid sick leave, and what will you do to address that?
I mean, Millie may know this better than I do, but as you know, it's a recommendation in the report. And so I'm not sure which operators, but believe me, that's a recommendation we take very seriously. Is that fair to say? Okay, thank you. Sir, do you have anything today?